Hey, it's Jeff Lee from ET Enterprises, and I just wanted to do a quick video to kind of update you on the Monte Carlo and the game plan with it and all that kind of stuff. So we made a little bit of progress, but still kind of figuring things out. So I don't think I'm going to make drag week. I didn't make the NMCA race. Life happened, and I'm selling a lot of stuff and doing a lot of things and working. So that's just the way it goes, but and I'm not going to beat myself up over it. So what I have done is I've got a two-prong game plan. This is a big block car. It needs a big block, but it's also probably hasn't been on the road or on the track since the 90s, and needs to get a little bit of work done and maybe testing. And I don't know if I want to throw that high horsepower big block in there for the first thing, just to get things rolling. And you know, I know I'm going to make some suspension changes. Things have changed in the last 25 years since it's been on the track. So I've got a game plan, and I'm about to show it to you here. So it's not the V6 from the other video, but so I have bought probably sounded awful. This is a stock bottom end LY6. So this came out of a 2500 truck, and the guy wrecked the truck, and his buddy bought the 823 or 821 heads off of it. But I got a game plan. I've got the 204R drag transmission from my Regal. It's got the billet servo and the turbo spline and good parts in it, and I can use any of our turbo 350 or 400 converters in it. I've got some 1 7/8 Hooker LS swap headers from a guy in Nashville at a restoration or a hot rod shop, and they went to use them on I think a V body, like a Caprice or a Impala, and they just didn't clear the steering, but they're 4A body, so these should work. I've got the motor mounts, but with this LY6, I'm going to take it up. I'm not going to take it all the way apart, but I might gap the rings and stuff for boost later on. But I'm going to check it out. Got a Holly oil pan for it. And then I have these 243 heads. And these are some special 243 heads. They're CNC ported by Wegner. And they use the stock size valves. They've also been kind of cleaned up in the combustion chambers too and polished, but these are the stock size valves, and this is like what they used on the NASCAR trucks, and I think ARCA from like 2007, 2008 on to like, I don't know, 2011. But stock valve, you know, a good port job. And then I have a Victor Jr. or no, Super Victor carb intake and an 850 that'll go on it, MSD 20 or 6014. But I got this from my friend James Rowlett of Fastest Cars in the Dirty South fame, down in Nashville. Got this from a guy who needed some parts, and we traded some things. So I've got new valve springs. I've got new Faria valves. Then I've got this crane cam, 1449401. If you want to look that up, since crane has been sold, I had to look that cam up, and it's like a Max Street Max Cathedral head, and I think it's like 231, 238 or something like that, and then 621 lift. And something like 621 lift. So it's kind of like a max street 113 LSA, so sort of like a Max Street cathedral port type cam, and it's one we had, and so I'm going to use that. But the other thing that's kind of cool, so yeah, one of these was damaged, dropped a valve. Yeah, had to replace that, but we got it repaired and with the new valve seals and stuff. But yeah, these are nice heads. But this leads to a kind of a cool story, and I told a few people, and then it's been milled a little bit. But all of that damage will be within the outside of the gasket area, so it will seal. So a story, as some of you know, my dad was a pattern maker, and one of the projects he worked on when he was a pattern maker here in Muskegon, Michigan was the LS motor. This is a LC9 right here. So he worked on the patterns or the molds for the LS motor and some heads and those other things. You know, a lot water pumps or whatever. So, and for an example of that, this is our other business, Hammerhead. We make these independent rear suspension differentials. This one is an 8.8, like the Cobra 8.8, but it has the mounts for the Corvette. So this will work in a C2 and C3 Corvette. This one is a 12 bolt, and this is the reason we named it a Hammerhead, because it looks like a hammerhead shark. And this here's our fabricated prototype from 2010. So you might recognize that. Anyway, so Dad's day job career, in addition to running the speed shop and building engines, was he was a pattern maker. So he built all these molds for heads and blocks and wheels and all kinds of things, which led to this retirement project, Hammerhead. There's another one. So in mid to late 90s, Dad was working on this, and Dad also got a lot of machine shop work done for his engines at Lingenfelter's in Indiana. So he's known John Lingenfelter since the 70s. And so the story goes, when Dad went down to visit John Lingenfelter to pick up some big block stuff or whatever in the 90s, he was porting some LS1 heads, and John knew what Dad did for a living, since they've known each other for a while, and knew what shop he worked at, and he was like, they were both kind of like, I can't talk about what I'm doing, but we know what we're both doing. So, long story short, these 243 heads were for the Z06, and John Lingenfelter basically ported stock LS1 heads, and that's what they used to make the molds for the Z06 heads. Ported LS1 heads by John Lingenfelter. Personally ported them. So, fast forward a couple months later or whenever, but Dad heard from John, and John said that he personally asked General Motors or whoever was managing the project, because Dad was working for the pattern shop that was doing the work, to have Dad do the work on those heads. So literally these were heads that Dad made the molds for, and John Lingenfelter kind of, created these, and then Wegner went ahead and imported them even more for racing purposes. So it's a little bit of Dad on this engine, and that's kind of the, a little bit more sentimental stuff for this project, to know that Dad made these heads and, or was involved in making these heads. So I think that's pretty cool.